And covering the summit for us here at CCTV News is our correspondent Jack Barton, who joins us now from Brussels. Welcome, Jack. We just heard from the European Commission President that an agreement is expected on new border protection measures. What will those measures be?
Well, for the first time, what he's really talking about is setting up a genuine European Union border guard and coast guard service, which would replace the current agency Frontex. The problems, or the perceived problems with Frontex, is that it can only operate with a sovereign country if that country requests it to provide assistance. It then has to act under the guidance of that country, and it requires the country to provide it with equipment, or for other countries to donate it equipment. So it has to ask to assist, and it is really having to beg for equipment. This new service would have its own command and control centre, a minimum of 1,500 dedicated staff. They would be able to purchase their own equipment, and they would be able to intervene within the territory of sovereign countries without asking for their permission. But because of that, it has actually set off a bit of a backlash. And there are some countries, Poland's being very vocal, saying as it stands, they will vote no on this because they see it as a power grab from Brussels. But we're already hearing about some compromise. It might not be exactly as the Commission proposed it, but as Jean-Claude Juncker said before, they're hoping to get an in-principle agreement on this. But one bit of good news that's just come in, we've heard as this meeting started, the rival governments in Libya have agreed to form a unity government. So now Europe will be able to work with them to fight human traffickers there. Of course, also ISIL, which has a strong foothold. And this comes, as you just mentioned, as the EU is working more closely with Turkey, the main route from which asylum seekers are now entering Europe.
All right, that is good news that those rival governments are coming together there in Libya. Jack, there is another big topic, of course, at this meeting, and that's a potential exit by Britain from the European Union. How much concern is there that this could, in fact, become a reality?
Well, those concerns are very real, and they are growing. British Prime Minister David Cameron, of course, pledged during the last election to hold an in or out referendum on EU membership. And he won that election, so that's going to happen sometime before 2017. He has been saying that if the EU gives Britain some key concessions, devolves powers back to Britain, that he will campaign to stay in the EU. But if they don't, he'll campaign for Britain to leave. Negotiations had been going quite smoothly for the past few weeks, but now he's demanding that EU citizens that move to Britain for work would not have access to social services for 4 years. That means they wouldn't have access to things like welfare payments. That would require treaty change. Leader after leader is calling that impossible, including the European Council President Donald Tusk. So he's got a real fight on his hands at the moment. It seems there's not going to be any agreement here, and for the first time in Britain we've seen polls showing that perhaps a majority of Britons, as it stands right now, would vote to leave the European Union.
Interesting. All right, many thanks indeed, Jack. Jack Barton there reporting to us from Brussels.